and pleasure to introduce our speaker who is going to get you all fired up for tomorrow and the rest of the time. Gilbert Casellas, a graduate of Penn Law School's class of 1977. For all the young people in the audience, if you have ever wondered how your life could make a difference, I urge you to listen closely to some of the things that I'm going to highlight. There's too many things on this list, but I want to highlight a few things. The following is only a partial list of the various capacities in which he has been of service, but it will be enough to inspire you. In the sphere of government, he accepted a 2009 appointment by President Obama to serve as civilian member of the Military Leadership Diversity Coalition and has chaired the United States Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. He has promoted diversity in corporate America by participating on diversity task forces for the Coca-Cola and Toyota companies. He serves on the board of Prudential Financial Incorporated. We need more Latinos on boards. And he served as Vice President of Corporate Responsibility and Chief of Diversity for Dell. He has kept his connection to the university alive at the highest levels by serving on Penn's Board of Trustees since 1996 and becoming a charter trustee in 2006. He has also presided over Penn's Law Alumni Society and served as chairman of the Board of Overseers of the School of Social Policy. So there's academia for you. Penn students have been fortunate to receive his financial support because he has endowed an undergraduate scholarship and has established and supported the Latino Project Scholarship Fund at the law school. As you can see, he has been a champion for diversity in government, business, law, and academia. Ladies and gentlemen, I present Gilbert Casellas.
Wonderful. And I want to thank the folks from the University of Pennsylvania for putting a Dell here. Now I'm more relaxed. Thank you all very much. I do want to thank all of you for being here, especially those of you who come from outside of Philadelphia. We do need you. And you're going to hear me repeat many of the things that you've already heard. And I'm going to keep this very short because I knew that the folks who preceded me were so committed and have been here throughout the last 2 days, but in the several months that have led up to this. And I sort of knew they were going to say some of the things that I was going to say. So I didn't bother to write the long speeches that I normally write that tend to put people to sleep. Instead thought I would just collect a few thoughts. And as I said, they've been repeated here. I do want to take a moment to acknowledge and to express publicly support for Clemson, who has been a real. I was a chief diversity officer at Dell, and I've counseled many global companies and chief diversity officers around the world. And one of the things I say is that a good chief diversity officer is an institutional irritant. Your job is to constantly needle and needle. And you know, Clemson has been that institutional irritant. Not just for the university, but for me as a trustee. And I'd see him coming and I go, and yet, you know, he serves a very valuable role, and I wanted to just publicly express my condolences to him, and I did so in a note. I also want to tell you that this is not a keynote. When I saw that this was going to be a keynote, I said, I'm not going to do a keynote. I'm going to have a quick conversation. It's going to be a quick one and a brief one, I promise you. But it's really more about a call to action. You kind of heard hints of that earlier. This is a historic event for Penn. The question is, will it be a meaningful one? Will it be a sustainable one? And ultimately, that's up to everybody in this room. Each of you as students, each of you as members of that alumni family of 250+ thousand Penn alums all over the world. So you've heard that I've been a trustee of the university for the last 14 years. And people always ask me, yes, how much you get paid for being a trustee? I said, nothing. You're a volunteer. And you pay for your hotel and your flight here. Yeah, that's a good job. But anyway, But I have been a volunteer at the University of Pennsylvania for 36 years. When I stepped foot on this campus 36 years ago as a first-year law student, and I got involved with the Latino Law Students Association and was the president for a while, and used to come back every year to talk to the minority law students after I graduated and practiced law here in Philadelphia. And then I taught at the law school and got involved in the Law Alumni Society and was the president of the Law Alumni Society many, many years ago. And having done all of that and coming here as I have for the last 14 years, several times a year for trustee meetings, I have to say to everyone in this room, and I mean this sincerely, I am so humbled and really so proud of the folks who have pulled this together and have demonstrated that commitment and the hard work, because that's really the true essence of volunteerism. And so all of you, I want to express to you publicly how proud I am and humbled at what you've done. I also want to say how proud and excited I am to have met and talked to students. One of the highlights of being a trustee is that probably one meeting a year, we have a meal. One of our various, we're here for 2 days, and one of the meals generally will bring students in, and they'll sit at the table with members of the board, and they're all highly accomplished, and we all, trustees, comment to one another, we'd never get in today, we couldn't compete against each other. But I want to say to Wendy especially, and to Ricky who's sitting next to me, Emmanuel, I know you all represent what is Penn, and so I wanted to acknowledge that this is just the beginning for you, and great things lie ahead. And as Patricia said, I mean, you are, and we all are very blessed to have had a world-class education, and I'm glad that you embody those values that we try to instill in Penn to give back. And that's what this university is about. That's how Ben Franklin founded it. If you know anything about Ben Franklin's background and his history and his record, you understand that it's that merging of practice and theory and really giving back to be part of the community. So you represent us very well, and Wendy, when you are rich and famous at Goldman Sachs, I want to ride in your plane, but we'll be calling on you to endow a couple of scholarships. This is a historic time. I said that this conference on diversity and community. I want to put it in perspective just for a minute. You all may know that 4 months ago I left Dell, where I was the head of global corporate responsibility, and it's an interesting company because there are 100,000 employees, 2/3 of whom work outside the U.S. in 65 countries. And so we have employees in 65 countries, but we sell in about 170 countries around the world. So it's a very complex kind of organism, this company, Dell, but it's not unlike other global companies and other global institutions, even a place like Penn. Because what you realize is that borders are dissolving, the globalization and technology and the ability to travel has made the world a lot smaller. And that this globalization really has changed everything. So if you think about a place like China, they have 3 times the number of college graduates as we have in the U.S. That's today. And soon, at some point, they will have more college students, those kids studying in college, China, than we have in our entire population in the United States. Now consider that fact, that we'll have over 300 million people studying in college. I used to say when I was at Dell and I talked to groups about what I did and about what the company did, that the next Michael Dell, right now, is probably a 9-year-old girl in Beijing, Bangalore, or Bogota. And she will be the next Michael Dell because of technology, and the ability to connect, and the investments that people are making in education. So when you think about these global institutions, as I said, know the challenges of operating among diverse cultures in a very complex world. And what that means for this country is that our leadership as a nation will be challenged by the increased educational levels and attainments by a very small part of those populations, but nonetheless, it will be challenged. I've always said that as Latinos, we've sort of been divinely designed to operate in this increasingly diverse and complex world. Why? Because we're the beautiful mixture of blood and culture of different continents. You think about that. So, you know, this 21st century America, you know, kind of like, you know, God kind of said, okay, when the 21st century comes along, you guys will be positioned to deal in this complex world because of those continents and those cultures that we sort of more easily navigate. So if you look around this room and you see the diversity just within this room in the Latino community, you understand that what I think to be the case, that we sort of just embody, diversity. So we have this convergence of globalization and of diversity, and we also have the changing U.S. demographics. You've heard some of those statistics thrown out. You know it. We're on our way to becoming a minority country. Before 2050, 30% of the U.S. population will be of Hispanic descent. Used to be, when I ran Census Monitoring Board 10 years ago, the statistic was maybe 25%. But in fact, it will be 30% before 2050. Several states, 3 or 4 states today, have no single majority race or group. Half the children under 6 in the United States today, half of them, are what we today call minorities. So in 12 years, half of the students who would be applying to college presumably could be what we today call minorities. So it's a flash in the pan, you know, very quick. It'll happen before you know it. But when I ran oversaw Census 2000, it was fascinating. I learned all this stuff about census, and one of the factoids we came up with was the fact that the Latino community, and that was 10 years ago, it's changed, it's gotten bigger number, but the Latino community is growing at the rate of 2.5 persons per minute. Wow. So by the time I'm done speaking here, so think about that. And today it's almost 3. It's almost 3, so it's like 2.8 or something like that. So just think about the numbers, the changes, what does that mean? This convergence of globalization and demographics also brings the possibility of collision with reality. And the reality was also referenced by Patricia, and that is this very high dropout rate for Latino students. It's also the college completion rate for Latinos, which is very, very poor. So as you think about how blessed, you know, each of you is, I'm not asking you to, you know, what you plan to do about those gargantuan global challenges. But I do ask you to reflect on the fact that how special you truly are. But the call to action really relates to Penn, which is a microcosm of that. As an institution that is represented globally, it's been around for 270 years, and God willing, and with the help of some smart trustees, we'll keep it going for another 270 years. But it's a microcosm. And so I want to talk just for a moment about diversity and inclusion. I've spent my whole life in the diversity world. And I always say that, you know, you don't make a case for diversity, or you don't make a case for diversity. You know, you don't make a case for the oxygen in this room and the gravity in this room. You know, it just exists. It exists in the world, it exists in this room, right? And so, you know, Penn has been on this diversity journey for a while, but there's no case to be made for it. The case that has to be made, the deliberate action that's required, is one of inclusion. Because the diversity exists, but how is it that you take deliberate action to make sure that everyone feels welcome to bring their best and to be themselves? That's what we did in the workplace. And when I talk about diversity in corporate America, it's how do you, regardless of your status outside, when you cross the threshold into a Dell facility or Coca-Cola or Toyota in Bangalore, and you come into that facility, we want you to bring your best. So regardless of your status as a woman in Bangalore, when you come into Dell in Bangalore, you can be yourself, and you can rise as high as we will allow you, and your talents ultimately will allow you. And so inclusion really is about, if it's done right, will breed trust, it'll breed cohesion, it'll breed unity, and that will drive creativity, that will drive innovation, and that's how you become a winner. And so when you think about inclusion, that's the act that you have seen going on here at Penn over the last several years. So if you've not been back here in a number of years, I hope that's what you've seen. And I hope you've seen enormous progress at this university. I certainly have in the 36 years that I've been associated with it. Penn has acted. We have a strategy, we have commitment, we've got the architecture, I can tell you from the very top. So regardless of who the president is, for the last 12 years, at least, maybe 13 years, we have had a trustee committee on diversity. And for the last 3, I've chaired it. And before me, Edward Perry, who is a university trustee, chaired it. And that means that it is institutionalized. It means that regardless of who the president is, regardless of what happens over the next 5 years or 10 years, for the next 270 years, there will be a watchful eye over making this university the best it can be, because diversity and inclusion has to be part of that formula for greatness. So if you look at the university's diversity, and by that I really mean representation, it's better. Certainly the student body is light years more representative than it was 20 years ago when I was here. Inclusion, yes, and I think this weekend is a great example of that. The very fact that this has happened is a great testament to the commitment and the resources that the university has put, and the welcoming, the nature of the part of the university to say, yes, let's do this. This is a great idea. We need to involve our alumni, our diverse alumni better. So having said that, for the diversity and inclusion, I'll harp on a point that I made a year ago when we were celebrating the 10th anniversary of La Casa Latina. And the folks who were in that room, some of them are here tonight, so I apologize for repeating or having you subject yourselves to me again. But I said that diversity was one thing. We don't argue about that. It exists. We work on inclusion. But I said the missing element is engagement. And that's what is the missing element for all of us. So diversity exists. The university has worked, as if you heard Amy Gutman this morning, if she is like she always is, she's fired up, she's committed to this issue because she knows this is inextricably tied to the university's ultimate and continued success. So that inclusion is there. But the missing element is engagement. And that means the onus is on us, each one of us. If we're going to be that 30% of the population in 50 years, if we're going to be the 30% of whether it's college students, the alumni, ultimately the reality is that we have the responsibility, we have the duty, really, not to be passive, but to be active participants, to step up and engage, and to do so disproportionately. Which means it's not enough to have one Latino trustee, or 2 Latino trustees, or 3 Latino trustees. But it doesn't happen overnight. It happens by involvement in this kind of activity. It happens by involvement in your secondary schools committee, your local alumni organizations. It happens with ALA. It happens with the check. That's true. But I can tell you that I've given a lot more sweat equity than others who have written bigger checks, and it ultimately doesn't happen. So the point is that element of engagement is what's left in that equation, and only you can supply it. The university can only go so far. Amy Gutman can only go so far. The Board of Trustees can only go so far. Now, the university's arms are open, and it's welcoming, and it's saying, this is as much your university as anyone else's. Be part of it, and make it your own. Engage and become involved. We really don't have a choice. Think about it. I told you about those numbers. We don't have a choice. So the only way to hold the university accountable is to be involved in various positions of leadership. And the only way to make the university truly great is for each one of you to go out and become the ambassadors for Penn and what you've witnessed here this last day and a half. Get involved, get engaged, get others involved and engaged, and we will truly be great. So I thank you for your time and attention, Thank you for listening to me, because I know it's like a broken record. But I really am truly proud of all that you've done here, and thank you for having me here.